Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Mind Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio, Tolltutor.net for more information, Twitter, Tolltutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Total Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, Google Plus, Neil Haley, and also on Periscope at Total Tutor. We're really, and we're live tweeting and live Facebooking and all these different things. It's a lot of fun. I love these 2 days, and I'm excited that my co-host, he's been here since the beginning, the first year he was producing, then he's been my co-host ever since. Eric Remmel from Life Improvement Radio, lifeimprovementmedia.com as well. Eric, how are you?
Doing great, Neil. It's good to be here, and I'm enjoying it, and it's a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to follow us on Twitter, they can at Life Improv Radio, or they can follow me at Eric Remmel, and that's Eric with a K, E-R-I-K. Live tweet us, and we'll make sure to work your questions or comments into the broadcast. It's been a lot of fun so far.
All right, so I'm excited to welcome in front of best-selling author Les Standiford. Les, thanks for calling, and how are you?
It's my pleasure to be here. Great. Always loving the book fair. Always a great time in Miami.
Oh, the first year, 2011, this is our fifth year broadcasting, but the first year I was down there, and I had an absolute blast. But with 5 kids, I'm going to have to wait till they're a little older to venture back to Miami. They need to make it a vacation when they're older and say, okay, you guys enjoy the fair, because there's so many great things for kids, isn't there, Les?
It's terrific. This fair unites this town way beyond what a Super Bowl might, or the visit of a pontiff even. We close the city down for 3 days and celebrate books, and thousands upon thousands of people throng the streets with their kids, going to cookbook presentations and YA presentations and literary presentations at the highest level. It's just amazing. When Mitchell Kaplan, who cooked all this up 25 years ago, described it to me before a single thing had happened, I thought, oh, Mitchell, come back to earth. This is Miami. We ride boats. We don't read books. And I came back a couple of years later, and by George, everything he said had taken place. The fair takes over this city, this gigantic city, 1 weekend, 1 week a year.
It's amazing. It's great to see all those authors in one place and get to share, and great events, too. I mean, I don't know if you're speaking at all over the weekend, but it's great to go and attend some of the lectures and the book reviews, and it's just a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'll be on a program here in about an hour, and wonderful for an author. I think every author feels honored to be here, and it's a great opportunity to reach so many people at once, and quite often these things are brought in. We have shows like yours that get the word out far and wide about a book.
That's what I love, is to highlight authors, fantastic authors that have done such amazing things. And Les, we're piggybacking off of our last author in certain ways, for sure, and Seth Siegel. And Seth was talking about the water supply and how Israel's trying to figure out a way in his book to talk about, how to eliminate the waste of water and stuff. But your book, again, kind of addresses the water issue as well, doesn't it?
It does. There's a tie-in. I think we're up against that panel, in fact, here in a little bit. Mine offers a more historical perspective about what might happen if you don't address the water issue. And the book is Water to the Angels, and it tells the story of how William Mulholland constructed the largest public works project in history. That's namely the L.A. Los Angeles Aqueduct. It's the real-life story behind the one that was fictionalized in Chinatown. And if that aqueduct had not been built, we wouldn't have a Los Angeles as we know it today. It might be of the ilk of San Luis Obispo, maybe Santa Barbara, but it wouldn't be the prominent world city that it is today. Would not have happened. And they were lucky. And how lucky we're going to be, various places are going to be in the future, I don't know. We could use a few more guys like William Mulholland around, I think, to lead the charge in certain areas, because that's how these things get done. Somebody forceful, somebody important says, you know what, we've got to take the long view, and we've got to take it right now.
No, what was it like doing the research for this book? Did you have to do a lot of interviews, a lot of historical data? What was it like putting the book together?
Absolutely. Over the years, so much material has become available online. It makes it a lot easier for somebody sitting in South Florida to write about things that took place in Los Angeles. But I had lived out there for several years on different occasions, so I knew something of the lay of the land, and I was able to pick my targets out there 4 or 5 times doing research for extended periods, but I knew where I was going. I knew what I needed to support the narrative as I wanted to present it. But the people at the Huntington Library were of great help, and doing research like this, like pulling on a thread at the end of a sweater sleeve. You keep pulling on that thread, which leads you up to the elbow and the shoulder, and before you know it, you get this great big pile of yarn that you didn't expect you were going to have. Then the process becomes, how do I put all that back together, not just to compile the world's largest encyclopedia article about the subject, but to arrange it in a fashion that tells a story that's going to attract contemporary readers. The problem I got when I was studying history, or had when I was studying history as a student in high school and college, was information was presented to me by and large as a series of dates and names to be memorized for a test and then promptly forgotten. And I have been working in the shadow of people like David McCullough and Sebastian Junger in the modern parlance, who take aspects of history and Eric Larson, turn them into fascinating stories, all the more interesting because they're true.
And what's been the result of the book? Like, after you've written it, have you gotten a lot of positive or negative feedback from it? Anybody tapped you to come speak and make people more aware?
Yes, the book has been reviewed in every major, from the Los Angeles Review of Books to the New York Times. Got a lot of notice. You always, when you're doing these kinds of things, you run across people who think they have the franchise on a certain aspect of history. Mm-hmm. And Mulholland, for many years, his stock among historians and in the historical lore of Los Angeles was down, way down. Largely, and I take this up in the book because I spoke with Robert Towne, the author of the screenplay for Chinatown, largely because of the implication that the whole enterprise to bring that water to Los Angeles was cooked up by criminals, and that Mulholland was simply doing their bidding. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Robert Towne wrote a fascinating screenplay, but it doesn't have much to do with the reality of how the water finally came from the Owens Valley that fed the aqueduct. There was controversy, to be sure. The Owens Valley would like to have kept hold of their water that Los Angeles needed to make it the metropolis that it became. And there was a lot of conflict to write about, which I delighted in. I'm a novelist as well as an historian, so I got to indulge both my passions in writing this. But I think the largest knock on Mulholland over the years came from this sort of implied message that came out of a work of fiction, a great work of fiction, Chinatown. It was particular fun for me to go up against that. And as I would go around, particularly in Southern California, people would say, "Well, what about Chinatown? What about Mulholland as a crook?" And gave me a great sense of being able to set the record straight.
And that's the important part of this, to set the record straight and to inform people about this. As I was talking to Seth again, I knew that we could have a water supply shortage in the United States, but it's just not spoken upon. As Eric and I were talking about before, it's just not out there in the mainstream. We have other things we're talking about that are more important issues, climate change, which has something to do with the water supply. We have, we're talking about terrorism, we're talking about poverty, but if the water supply is not fixed, if we don't find a way to conserve more water, what's going to be, what could happen? What could states like California look like if water kind of almost disappeared? What would it look like? Like desert,
well,
pretty much.
Utter catastrophe. People, if there was a true water crisis that has been forecast for South Florida, for instance, where climate change suggests a rise in sea level, which in turn suggests there might not be a Miami Beach anymore because the tides will swallow it up every night. Well, and it also means saltwater intrusion into the aquifer that allows people to live on this tiny little 15 to 30 mile strip of relatively dry and high land from West Palm Beach down to Homestead. Well, if the wells go salty, where's the water that has kept this place going to come from? We tend to think on the East Coast, think in terms of, well, too much water, flooding. Well, not focusing on what's implied in terms of climate change having to do with water and how that will impact life as we know it is about as short-sighted as you can get. There won't be anything for terrorists to threaten.
Definitely, and that's fearful. So, what would you say would be your strategy? I know that you're the historian that came back and looked and uncovered things, but if you were to talk to politicians, if you were to talk to the average day consumer, what would you of water? What would you say? How can we become better at conservation?
Well, the first thing is to do just like Los Angeles did and put a waterman in a position of authority and then get the heck out of the way and let him do his work. For them, that turned out to be William Mulholland. He saved that city. I think on a national level, we need a water czar. I don't know what the precise title of the agency should be, but water, we should be spending the same amount of attention on water that we are on counterterrorism, because it is just as important to the survival of this nation as we know it. And particularly the great cities, which are all port cities, are at serious risk in terms of water supply and issues of flooding and so forth. So that would be one thing. I think in terms of the supply of fresh water, desalinization that offers the only seeming scientific hope that something can be done. Right now, it is just absurdly expensive. Israel is one of the few countries who's been able to do anything within the realm of reason, making water affordably available through the process of desalinization, and they're very important to watch. But right now that's very expensive, and I don't know how long it's going to take to bring desalinization plants online to producing the kind of volume to make a difference with the troubles that we are experiencing. There are towns right now in California, small towns, that get their waters from wells. They're simply drying up and blowing away. And these sort of nutcase scenarios that have been proposed by some, I know, we'll dig another aqueduct from the state of Washington and we'll save California that way. Well, how long do you think it's going to take to dig that canal? And who says that the people of Washington are going to let that happen? And imagine all the ecological roadblocks that are going to spring up in the way. I think desalinization is the only possible solution.
All right. Well, fantastic. Where can we purchase your book and learn more about you and find out info on you? Where can we go?
Please do. Take a look. Water to the Angels.
Is there a website and stuff to purchase, or just go to Amazon? What's the best place?
You can go on any website. It's available on any website. It comes from Echo, division of HarperCollins. Trade paperback coming out the 1st of February if you want to wait and save a couple of bucks. And you can go to my website, les-standiford.com, and it'll tell you all you want to know about Water to the Angels and then some.
Well, good luck on your talk today, and I did friend you on Facebook, so I hope we stay in touch and see if the water thing comes out again more in the news. We can try to make sure it happens when we see certain things happen and have you back on the show. So I appreciate you calling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Too bad you guys can't be here. Thank you a lot.
I wish. We wish. All right. You're listening
Bye-bye.
to the Total Education Network. Bye-bye. You're listening to the Total Education Network, powered by Life Improvement Radio. We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.